this is what you do at 24 years old. You know, considering it's the, how many years ago did the IFC open? 20 years ago?
20 years.
Yeah. Well, I was here opening day because of this, and I lived in the East Village at the time, and I came across on 3rd Street, and in front of me was that, you know, in front of the IFC was this giant scab rat, you know, from the Union. And make a long story short, Maniac actually never screened because no one came in the theater. They were blocking the tickets. So I don't know if you know that. It's a little trivia. Yeah, so.
That's a great way to start. Thank you all so much for coming, and thank you for making this incredible film. I think it just holds up so well, and it's just so fun to see it on the big screen with the remaster and the sound and everything. Like, you really get into Frank's head in the theater, I think, more so than you would.
Yeah, when I came in, I don't think the surrounds were on. I asked them to be put on. Were they on? They were? Because I didn't hear them. Okay.
Well, I'll ask a few
Yeah,
questions.
excuse me, my allergies are kicking up.
I'll ask a few questions before I open it up to the audience, but the main one that I wanted to ask you was working with Joe Spinnel and how you developed the character of Frank, and if the mannerisms, like the breathing and everything, were always part of the script, or if that was a happy accident.
Joe has asthma. Or he did. He had asthma, so it was inherent with him. I lived through the golden age of serial killers. The 70s were a great period. We had Son of Sam, we had, you know, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, all these really colorful serial killers that you young people don't have today. All you have are these white trash guys who kill a girl down the street and all this. So Joe and I were fascinated by those people. And Joe, we decided to create a character that was a compilation of, what's his name, Son of Sam, and all these guys. We just wanted to kind of, create like the ultimate serial killer, and then he has characteristics of all of them. And so Joe did his research, and he really, he took it very seriously. My apartment at the time looked over at another part of the apartment building, and there was a kid who would sit on his bed in the afternoon and just rock back and forth. And Joe was mesmerized by that. So that's where that rocking comes from, was that kid across the way. I mean, this was just, it was very organic.
Collaborative.
Oh yeah, we had fun. We really had fun. It was crazy. We had no money. It was.
Well, you never would have told. I couldn't eat the screen. I mean, it's amazing how much you got on there with a low budget.
We didn't have a budget. It was just spending as little as we could. But we started the film out. We had about $48,000 cash, and it was shot on 16, and which was the video of that period. Now everybody goes, "Ooh, my movie shot in 16." I didn't want to do it. It's so hard. It's harder to shoot 16 than 35, believe it or not. We just, we had very little money. I had a guy who I was schmoozing at Chemical Bank, now Chase, on the corner, and got some loan. Got a little loan from him, borrowed money from family. We just did everything to make the film. At the end, the film cost about $135,000. And
How many days was production? Was it spread out over a long period of time?
Yeah, there was a gap. The Caroline Munro stuff was all shot later. We had a gap, and because we ran out of money, and but it wasn't a big gap. It was maybe a week or two, and Caroline Munro's husband kicked in some money, and we were able to finish shooting the film.
Wow. Yeah. I think it's interesting how you start off with him and you know him so deeply, and then it turns into this like semi-romance, but more so just him dealing with his mommy issues, which I'm guessing is probably a through line through all the serial killers that you researched, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. A lot of bad mommies out there.
And was she always did you always plan on her getting away?
Caroline?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you can't kill Caroline. You know, it's just the way it is. Originally, that was going to be played by Dario Nicolodi, Dario Argento's wife. Dario at one time was going to be our partner on the film, and I don't recall why, but it sort of sort of fizzled out, and I know Dario Nicolodi couldn't do it because she had made a commitment to some Italian miniseries, so it was just a stroke of luck. Caroline Munro was in New York for a Fangoria convention, and Joe and Tom went to the convention and saw her there. Of course, what are you doing? We're making this movie, and we wound up casting her. I mean, we'd already shot everything, everything besides the Caroline Munro stuff was already shot.
It adds so much more complexity to his character.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about Joe is he had some of the most attractive women, and you would say, "Wow, this guy's not, exactly, classically handsome guy," but he had some beautiful women that were, pretty stuck on him. So, I don't know.
He had the riz and the sweat.
Yeah, I think so.
No, but really, he's so charming in this really terrible way. Like, you can't help but want to know what happens to him, and when he's on screen, it's like all you can look at.
Well, I think one of the elements that helped that was Jake Chataway's score in this. He really made you feel empathy for the guy, and coupled with Joe's performance, of course. But it was Jay's music, which wasn't your normal horror music. It was sort of melodic and helped that.
Definitely, and you continue to work with Jay.
Oh yeah, he really the greatest.
Yeah, I want to talk about your collaboration with Tom Savini too.
Okay.
So how was that?
Well, I had seen Dawn of the Dead before it was released, actually, and I thought the effects were, of course, incredible. So I locate Tom Savini. He's shooting the original Friday the 13th in New Jersey. So Joe, myself, Andy Garoni, we jump into my car, which, by the way, was that Buick Electra that Joe drove. We jump into the car, we go to New Jersey, we go meet with Tom Savini, and Tom really wasn't, focused on the script or even working with Joe, who was a pretty well-known actor at the time. He had just broken up with a girl in Pittsburgh, and Friday the 13th was winding down, and he didn't want to have to go back to Pittsburgh. So he said, "Look, if you get me an apartment in New York, I'll do your movie." See, that's how we got Tom Savini.
It's kind of a hard feat if you think about it. Maybe easier back then.
Oh, much easier. Oh, we're not talking. Yeah, we're talking 79 prices.
Yeah.
I always passed. My first apartment in New York was on the corner of 6th and 14th, and I had believe it or not, a studio penthouse. And I look at it, and it was $325 a month with this beautiful large balcony. And I have so many memories of Sunday mornings listening to Billy Joel's Stranger album, which was the big album at the time, having my bagels and coffee, reading newspapers. I still love newspapers.
Well, I think I'll open it up to the audience now. I'm sure there's lots of questions.
Ebert and Jesus.
Oh. Well, I have
Didn't care for Maniac, but I heard that you ran into Roger.
I did. I was cutting Maniac Hop 2, and Roger Ebert was in another editing room down the hall, and I decided I had to get my Maniac poster signed by him. I brought it in, and I brought it to Roger Ebert, and he wrote a very, we were chatting a bit. He was a really nice guy. He already was, very nice guy. And he goes, Maniac might have been was dog of the week, but Lustig's a really nice guy. Roger Ebert. Yeah. And no one takes that stuff seriously.
And you mentioned a little bit about the music in the film, which I absolutely loved, and I was just wondering if maybe you could give us more of an insight to the process. I don't know how involved you were.
I was totally involved.
That's awesome.
But I must say, Jake never listened to me, which was great. And it wasn't like he was being, passive aggressive or whatever, or he was ignoring me. He just he showed me what he had in mind, and I liked it better than I had in mind. You have to forgive me, my allergies are killing me. Originally, Goblin was going to do the score, Claudio Simonetti and all that. And so I always heard Goblin's music in my head. I met Jay, who at this point had done a very shitty movie called Firepower. And he had done some other small things, but he really wanted to get into film scores. And I showed him the movie, and he said, I'd love to do it. I think I had a total of about $10,000 at that point to spend on music, which is not very much. And that included his fee and everything, studio, musicians, the whole 9 yards. I gave him some Goblin soundtracks. I gave him John Carpenter soundtracks, all to try to get it into his head. And naturally, he disregarded it for the most part. And he came up with a score that I think was just original, and it was brilliant, really brilliant score. And ever since then, we've been, we had such great collaborations, and it was after Maniac, it was like, okay, go ahead, Jay, just do it. I mean, I wasn't like that exactly, but I trusted him, and because he always delivered for me. He's a really, really good guy. Yes. I see.
I'm curious if you've ever seen the last horror film, aka Maniac 2, and what do you think?
I was there when they were shooting it in Cannes.
Oh.
He was asking about the last horror movie, aka Maniac 2. So wrong. Anyway, yeah, I was there in Cannes when they were shooting it, and it was as big a shit show there as what you saw up on the screen. It was just totally nuts. I mean, we would, when I left Cannes and came back to New York, I got a call from Joe's assistant, Luke. We called him Luke the Fluke. And Luke, he was, Bill, we got a problem here. We're at the Carlton Hotel, the most expensive hotel, by the way, in Cannes. It's like unbelievable. And he goes, they're not giving Joe back his passport because we owe them $8,000. I said, well, what about the film company? Aren't they paying you? Well, they left us behind. And we have this bill here that we got to pay to be able to get out of the country. But that was the last horror movie.
I love the sequence in the subway that ends in the bathroom. I think it's the best in the movie. And I'm just curious, did you have a permit for that, or did you just go down to the subway and shoot it?
Sort of. Let me explain. we got permission to shoot where she comes through the turnstile, and then where she emerges on another platform going towards the bathroom. We had permission for those two from the New York Subway Authority and all that. Now, what the Subway Authority does is they assign somebody, to kind of oversee watching you shoot and all that. One of the guys who was working on the film, Randy Jurgensen, I don't know if you guys know Randy. Randy was one of the original French Connection cops. He was the basis of the movie Cruising. I called him my gold shield friend. And the thing about Randy is all these city kind of workers, like the Subway Authority guys, they look up to Randy because he was kind of a celebrity at that time. French Connection was a big movie and all that. And so what happened was when I got the shot of her going through the turnstile, down the stairs through the turnstile, I said, Randy, can you take this guy out for dinner? He went out for dinner with the guy, and we took the cameras down on the subway platform, which we were totally forbidden. Totally. I mean, it was explicit that we could not shoot near subways, cars, let alone put a camera on a subway car. I mean, we just did everything. That they, you needed a policy from Lloyd's of London at the time, an insurance policy, which was what the total cost of the film was. It was ridiculous. I said, no one's going to get hurt. Let's go down there. When you're young, you got nothing to lose. What are they going to do? Take away my $200 Buick Electra? So that's how we did that. Now the bathroom, the interior of the bathroom, was actually shot at a gym on 23rd Street near the East River. I think it's a YMCA. I don't know. There's some kind of a gym there. If any of you guys know, near Stuyvesant Town. That's where we shot the interior. And all that graffiti we put up. I don't know if we took it down, but we put it up.
The apocalypse now.
Oh, what's that?
The apocalypse now.
Yeah, that was Joe. He was doing a shout out to his friend Francis Coppola. 7 Ups was a shout out from Randy to Phil D'Antoni, and it was very original. Yes.
What were some of the movies that you were thinking about when you made this one?
A whole slew. I was very influenced by the European horror directors like Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, Mario Bava, you name them. You guys know them probably better than I do, the names. And I was always fascinated because those movies were so far superior to the AIP crap that came out of California. And so just intuitively I knew I wanted the films to have that kind of European camera work and the sound. A lot of the music is in the forefront versus a lot of the American horror films. They're not, with Halloween a notable exception. So that was really the influence, and I could go into more detail for each scene, like the scene in the apartment with Gail Lawrence, the pretty girl in the apartment. I was thinking of Propulsion when I was shooting that. I had in mind the movie, Roman Polanski's Propulsion. And I'm trying to think, I know there was a scene involving the subway that there was something, I can't think of it right now. But there were like different movies, different styles that I kept thinking of. It was aspirational. That's how we did it. Let me see. You.
I really love the apartment. I would love to hear more about like the artwork and the design.
Oh,
of the
okay.
apartment.
Well, it's interesting. interesting. That's the only set in the whole movie. And we shot that in some tiny studio in Long Island. And one day, Joe comes to me, he says, I met this guy at a bar in the East Village, this Russian guy, and he built the sets in Moscow, you know, the opera sets and things like that. I said, oh, really, Joe? I go, he sounds abundantly qualified. He says, yeah, we can have him build our set. He's also an artist. He'll give us some of his artwork to put up. I forget the guy's name, and I don't even know if he was credited. That's how crazy it is. Anyway, so, yeah, he was the guy who built it. Now, we did come to the studio before we started shooting in there, and this guy really thought he was building an apartment. I mean, those walls were solid, really solid, you know. They were not flimsy at all. There wasn't flyaway walls. I mean, that sink, I think the guy was gonna put plumbing in. That's you know, I think he took it very seriously. Yeah, so many years later, many years later, we're having a screening of Maniac in California at the New Bev, and Sharon Mitchell is there, and it's hard for me to sit through the movie again, so I sat outside, and Sharon and I sat on a bus stop bench, and we were chatting, and somehow the whole thing about the set guy came up, and she said, I don't know if you know this, Bill, but that's the guy who was the go-to guy to build the S&M dungeons in New York. He was the go-to. I go, really? Oh, that's a little bit, that's a different story than Joe was telling me.
We have time for one more.
Oh, this guy.
I wanted to ask about the Verrazano Bridge scene, because it's this amazing sequence in Tom Savini's head blowing up. How much time did you really have to do that? Because it seems like you have to do it pretty quick.
Well, you know, that scene, there's not a permit in New York or anywhere in the world, I imagine, that allows you to shoot live ammunition on a public street as part of a movie. But that was the only way we were going to be able to do it. And stupid me, I should have done it in a studio somewhere, because you couldn't really tell the outside of the car, you know. You could just use the sound effects of the cars, but no. I actually shot it on location with Tom Savini jumping on the hood of the car, doubling Joe Spinnel, and firing a double load, full cartridge, shotgun bullets into the windshield of this car that the back of the car was near the BQE, which, as you guys know, is one of the busiest highways in New York. We're firing right at cars. Anyway, so what we did is we did the shot. You know, Savini, it worked out great. We had 3 cameras, we covered it. And what I did is I had a sacrificial production assistant standing by. And I grabbed the shotgun. Oh, Tom Savini, when he fired the gun, somehow the force of it caused his legs to flip out from under him because it was like oily from the fog machine. And he landed on the concrete parking surface. We didn't put a mattress or anything down there to cushion his fall. We didn't think he was going to fall off the car. So I reached down, I grabbed the shotgun out of his hands. I don't even ask him if he's okay. And I had the production assistant with the trunk of the car open. I throw the shotgun, the smoking shotgun, into the back of the car, close the lid, and I say, head for Staten Island. I had a fear that somebody would call us into the cops or something. I just didn't want that shotgun anywhere near the set.
Probably smart that you did that.
Oh yeah. But that's how we shot it. Anyway, anybody have another one?